Hey guys, so we're moving on to the next set of notes in Unit 2, and that's solving one-step equations by multiplying or dividing now. So now it's not adding, subtracting, it's just multiplying or dividing. So notice that in our first example here that they give us, they say 2x equals 10. It's important to remember this fact right here, and that is that 2x is the same thing as 2 times x. You have to remember that in order to figure out what to do. So in order to get rid of the 2 in this particular equation, we're going to have to divide each side by 2 because it's being multiplied and we want to do the opposite. So if we divide both sides by 2, we should get x equals 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then if you look at your other example, over here, we have x over 2 is equal to 6. And it's important to note that x over 2 is the same thing as x divided by 2. So the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So in order to get rid of the 2 and solve for the variable, we're going to have to multiply both sides by 2. It gets rid of it, and you get x equals, what is 6 times 2? 12. And that would be our final answer. So let's look at our examples. So first we're going to do it with whole numbers. We're going to solve with whole numbers. And notice that again, they're separated into columns. In this first column, we're going to need to divide. And in this second column, you will need to multiply. Okay? So let's look at the first column. In the first column, we have 4x is equal to 32. Well, remember, 4x is the same as 4 times x. So in order to solve this, we're going to have to do the opposite and divide both sides by 4. When we do so, we get x equals 8. 32 divided by 4 is 8, and we're done there. In our next example, we have a divided by 5 is equal to 9. So in order to get rid of dividing by 5, we're going to do the opposite to both sides, and that's multiply by 5. When we do that, we get a equals 9 times 5 is 45, and that one's done. Then we have to work with decimals, so make sure you have your calculator ready when you're working with decimals. In the first column, remember, we're going to have to divide. So we have 6 times x is equal to 15.36. In order to get rid of the 6, we're going to have to divide both sides by 6 because the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So when I punch that in the calculator, I'm going to say 15.36 divided by 6 is 2.56 as my answer. And in the next decimal answer, where we're going to divide, notice that we have 4.8 in our equation is equal to w divided by 3. The opposite of dividing is multiplying, so we're going to multiply both sides by that 3 to get rid of it. And then we get w equals 4.8 times 3 is 14.4 as our final answer here. Now we're going to deal with integers. So remember, when you are multiplying and dividing integers, you can use this as a little hint or cheat sheet for yourself here, okay? If I cover up, and what it does, it's only with multiplying and dividing integers, so negative and positive signs, right? So what you do is, or how this works is, if you have a negative times a negative or a negative divided by a negative and you cover those two up, your answer is a positive. Your answer is the positive. Or if you have a positive, a positive times a negative, then you cover those two up. So then your answer would be what's left, and that's a negative. That's how you use that little cheat sheet for multiplying and dividing negatives. But you can also use a calculator, so don't forget to use that. So in number 5, it says negative 3 times u is equal to negative 30. So the opposite of times is dividing. We're going to divide both sides by negative 3. And then we get negative 3 divided by negative 30 divided by negative 3 is a positive 10. Same thing with number 6. Number 6, we have y. You can technically take this negative and apply it to your 4 because that's the number that you're working with. So really what we have is y divided by negative 4 is equal to 25. Since we're dividing, what we're going to do to get rid of that negative 4 is we're going to multiply both sides by the negative 4. So that all signs are gone and you're left with just positive y is equal to 25 times negative 4 is a negative number. A positive times a negative is a negative. And 25 times 4 is 100. So our answer here would be negative 100. Okay? So in the next one, we have fractions. So when we are dealing with fractions and multiplying and dividing, you cannot divide by a fraction per se, because technically in this first one, it's asking us, or it's saying 6 over 5 times u is equal to 30. So typically you would do division here and you would divide by the fraction. But you cannot actually divide by a fraction. Instead, you multiply by what is called the reciprocal. Okay, so watch how that works. So the reciprocal is just the flip. Another word for reciprocal is the flip of the fraction. Okay, so 6/5, if I flip that around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by 5 over 6 instead, always onto both sides. Okay, so if I multiply by 5 over 6, it actually gets rid of the fraction, and now I get my answer of u equals. Okay. And then when I do 30 times 5, 6, I can do what is called cross canceling. So if I put 30 over 1, 30 divided by 6 over here is 5. So I'm going to turn this 30 into a 5, and I'm going to turn this 6 into a 1. Then what I have left is 5 times 5, which is 25. So our final answer here would be 25. If that cross canceling is too confusing, then you can totally use a calculator to do that. Okay? In number 8, let's try number 8. Number 8 is the same thing. It's actually the same exact problem, so I don't have to show you number 8, but you cannot divide by a fraction. So remember, you're always multiplying by the flip. Okay? So if you do the cross canceling, great. If you don't do the cross canceling, remember, it's the same thing as 30 times 5, which is 150, and then dividing that by 6, which turns out to be 25 as well. So that there is the other way that you could get down to the answer of 25. So when in doubt, use a calculator for these, okay? If you're having trouble with the signs or with the fractions, just remember to multiply by the reciprocal when you have the fraction, and whatever's happened to the variable, you do the opposite. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.